Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, where we're going to dive into a variety of news pieces, of which we don't have that many this week. The Board Game Geek Hotness, the games I played, the videos of the week, all that and more. Links and timestamps to everything down below. We're going to start off with news. Like I said, we don't have a lot, but there was a lot of news with both Mass Effect and Cyberpunk 2077, two video games turned board games that are getting a lot of press from outside the board game space. Starting with Mass Effect on the more negative side, which we have Mass Effect the board game. It's mechanically brilliant as it is frustrating. I've seen a few different tidbits of news on this one. It seems to be getting mixed reviews, some things to like, some things to not like, whether it's the rules being a little fiddly and complex, whether it's the gameplay really delivering on that story aspect that Mass Effect is known for. But either way, I'm going to link to one article down below, but there's a lot of press around this because, again, it is a video game turned board game, which means it's getting a lot of attention from spaces you may not used to games getting attention from. Similarly, we have Cyberpunk 2077, which we have an IGN article over here, but again, a lot of news around this one because Cyberpunk 2077, the board game from Go On Board, which is currently on GameFound, $2.5 million raised. Lots of press on it. Again, mixed press in different ways. This one, less coverage on playing the game, more so about the campaign in general. But in general, lots of things focusing on massive funding, blah, blah, all these good things. And it is, but obviously we know from Go On Board and The Witcher and the past campaigns that this is, while funding very well, it's not necessarily amazingly out of the park. It's just doing well for another Go On Board IP video game turned board game. Then in other news we have over here, we have Thomas Kogler appointed as new Chief Executive Officer of Asmodee. Basically, a new CEO of Asmodee is being put in the works over here. So that's basically just, more Embracer / Asmodee news. We also have over here, we have I Love Playing with Fire, another article about a board game from a non-board game space. So we have Slate putting out an article on Rock Hard 1977, the board game you didn't know you needed in your life. Because I don't know, this is more like pop culture-esque, so they're covering the game, which is nice. It's nice to see more coverage on the game in different ways. Again, I like board games getting coverage from outside the board game space because it often is an opportunity to bring people into the board game space in different ways. But this is Rock Hard 1977, the board game, an article at Slate about that board game. Then we have over on Board Game Wire, we have CMON's H1 revenue falls almost 25% year on year amidst heavy slump in wholesale earnings. The article goes through more of their general, where their money's coming from, drop in retail, crowdfunding doing about par, I believe it was. I think crowdfunding was, I have to remember what there was over here. Crowdfunding is dropped a bit. Crowdfunding dropped less, 10% instead, so not as much. But in general, just going over CMON's numbers, including they have one little tidbit over here, where they were also unable to shed any light on CMON's announcement in July that it entered into a non-binding agreement to sell some of its intellectual properties in a $12 million deal, which is very intriguing, especially considering CMON has actually taken on a bunch of intellectual properties from other companies, so now they're selling some of them. Very interested to see what that is. That agreement is expected to be made definitive by the end of October, the firm said at the time. Intrigued, we'll see what that one is. That's basically news on CMON and their revenue. In general with these things, CMON's always the subject of a variety of conversations about how they're doing. They've had things about, their stock, whatever it was, their exchange things. They're always in an interesting space where it's never fully clear how well they're doing. They seem to do fine and not have any issues, asking for more money or non-delivered campaigns, but they also do always have a lot of campaigns in the works, and I think they'll always be the subject of speculation around how they're doing. But things like this, I am mindful, doesn't mean anything, does it not, especially the sale of intellectual properties. I'm not ready to cry fire just yet, but also keep an eye on all these types of things in general, especially if you're someone who's backing a lot of their campaigns. And then we have, that's it. That's what we have for the news. We have all that. I don't have any more for the board game news for this week. Like I said, not a ton of things in the news. We do have some stuff to go over on the hotness. In general, the Board Game Geek Hotness, we go through a bunch of these things, but not necessarily a ton of them. And I had a few I wanted to go over here specifically. There was Castle Builder somewhere up here. Let me see if I can find this. Was it Castle Combo? I don't think so. Maybe it was Castle Combo, but now I'm not sure. No, Castle Builder. Castle Builder over here, this one is from, oh my gosh, so this one is an interesting one. This is Castle Builders from Fricks Games, and if you click through on this one, it's intriguing. It's in the hotness right now. And Fricks Games is a fascinating company. They're one of the companies along with Stronghold behind Terraforming Mars, but their games are all over the place. They have things that are like mechanically brilliant like Terraforming Mars, and they have these kind of weird offshoot projects that don't feel anything like Terraforming Mars, but in a weird way, their offshoot projects all do feel a little bit similar. It's a weird situation. Nothing wrong with this. It's a game where it seems like you draft tiles, build them in a castle in different ways. You're building a castle, but I just found it interesting on that aspect alone. We also have, interestingly enough, I really appreciated seeing this over here. We had Cyberpunk 2077 Gangs of Night City. That's currently in the Board Game Geek Hotness as well. And I'm assuming that's in the hotness because people are searching for Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, and getting the CMON title instead. So I think this is just getting adjacent hotness just by the very nature of people searching for things and finding, well, similar things. We have Mass Effect over here as well. Mass Effect was also in the Board Game Geek hotness, for reasons we covered already. Where is this one over here? Is it higher up? Mass Effect, the board game. Priority Hagalaz over here. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. But this one is obviously in the hotness because it's just delivered. It's arriving. People are getting the opportunity to try it out and see if it's for them. And it's getting a lot of clicks and press and all that. We obviously have Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, for obvious reasons. And then we had Terra Nova was an interesting one too. Terra Nova over here at number 8 in the hotness. I have to assume that's because of the Game Nerd sale. Game Nerds had their Game Nerds Day or whatever it is, or Game Day or Nerds Day, whatever it was. But they had Terra Nova at a really solid price, which has me believing that a whole lot of people have been clicking on Terra Nova to see if they are tempted to go ahead and get that one or not. I don't know if they actually got it, but I do know that a lot of people clicked on it. And then we have Andromeda's Edge. Andromeda's Edge as well. This one coming to you from Carbon Alchemy, and this one is, obviously in the hotness because, again, it's delivering and starting to get that press and, unboxings and reviews and coverage and opinions and all those things, as you can expect to happen when a very anticipated game, like even in my most recent live stream this past week, I had several people asking me for whether I was going to be covering Andromeda's Edge or my thoughts on it. There's a lot. It's just currently in the current lexicon of the public imagination, and that's what we have for the hotness over here. Which means it's time to go ahead and dive into the week in review. Starting off with the games I played. As usual, this is a small smattering of the games I played, not everything I covered this past week, but we have a few things. We have Little Alchemist. I've been diving into Little Alchemist from CGE, playing through the first few scenarios with my daughter. It is an interesting game. I didn't love Alchemist, the original Alchemist, although it's been a long time since I played it, so I'm not sure. But Little Alchemist kind of works so far, with the caveat that it very much is catered towards an introductory deduction kind of element. It starts off very, very, very simple, to the point of being not worth playing or not worth playing through. But again, keep in mind, it's meant to ramp up quickly. The goal of the game, the way it's structured, is the better you're doing, the faster you unlock new content and new rules, which perfectly makes it catered for introducing people to these kinds of games. And the first game is very basic, very intro, not a lot going on. As you go through it, it already starts to get more interesting. I'm currently, I think, I've played through 3 of the 8 packs currently, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's not yet at a point where I would love to play it as one of my deduction games, but it's already at a point where I'm enjoying it at least, and that's Little Alchemist. I'll have review coverage for you once I properly, fully go through it. Then we have Harmonies. I'm continuing to play through Harmonies, really still enjoying that one. It is still a lot of fun to go through. I will eventually have review coverage for you, but Harmonies is a fun game. It's a fun game in that Cascadia style of gameplay, that's just a little puzzly element of combining different things. The combination of drafting cards and terrain tiles at the same time. Be mindful of basic rules around terrain placement, basic rules around tile placement, the cards you're going to add that are going to give you little structures you're trying to work your way towards. So far, really enjoying Harmonies, and it's a good game. It's getting a lot of buzz and hype for a reason. And then I also had a chance to play Cartographers again. Cartographers is always a fun game. Speaking of little points going optimizations, I've actually played Cartographers several times this past week. It's one of those games that I don't always sit down on the table, but it is one that I regularly go back to, which is why it's consistently in my collection. It's just an easy roll and write, not really roll and write, it's an easy flip and write game of trying to fill in your little polyomino boxes in a grid while you be mindful of different scoring criteria, a whole bunch of different scoring criteria. It is just a consistently good game from Thunderworks Games. And that's what we have for the games I played, which brings us to the videos of the week. For the videos of the week, first of all, on this past Saturday, we had a review for Flowers. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I thought it was okay, not particularly amazing. It was okay. There's nothing wrong with it, nothing really good about it. It was just an okay game. Then we also had a review for Kyoto no Neko. That was a 4 out of 5 for me. I overall enjoyed it, with the caveat that it is a game that I don't think it's a forever game for me. I think it's a game I want to go through the various scenarios and enjoy it, but the art, the production, the accessible gameplay, the target audience, all good things overall for it. We had on Sunday we had a games leaving the collection for September. Some hard ones in that one, a bunch of hard ones. We had Gentes, Lacrimosa, and one more in the really hard camp. I don't remember what it was. It was Gentes, Lacrimosa. I don't remember the last one. There were 3 games that I was bothered to get rid of, but ultimately hard decisions have to be made. In general, just it's always tricky. I'm always trying to keep a collection of games that I love and that I'm playing, and some of these games, especially, I find that longer games are getting harder and harder to keep too many within a genre. So within the genre of heavy Euros or midweight Euros, I want the best of the best. Within the genre of area control games, I also got rid of Lords of Hellas, I think. I think it was that video. I'm pretty sure it was this week. But within the genre of area control games, I can only keep the best of the best. There's limited time to play all these games and to play the new games, and so I have to get rid of some games that I really enjoy, but ultimately are not getting tabled. Oh, Carnegie. Carnegie was the other one. Oh my gosh. It was a brutal week. It was a brutal month as far as games getting rid of. On Monday we had 2 back not to back, going through a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns. On Tuesday we had a bunch of heavy hitter reviews. We had Cyberpunk 2077 getting a review, just going over the game. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. And I even said in the video that my instinct is to give it a 5 out of 5, but I really just need to see more of the game, especially given the fact that it's a real-time game, and real-time games for me have not always lasted in my collection. They usually are games that I enjoy, but then the gimmickiness of it eventually wears off, or wears down, I should say. Not necessarily wears off, but low is the thing. So I gave it a cautionary 4.5 out of 5, but if it ends up where Project Lead is, it will eventually be a 5 out of 5, and I think it will. I just need more time to, specifically because of the genre that it's in. Later on Tuesday, we had a preview for A Cure for What Ails You, the Stay sponsored preview that Meg did on the channel. And then lastly on Tuesday, we had a Elder Scrolls review. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I think the gameplay itself is a 5 out of 5. It's an incredible game, but I do think that the accessibility of how easy that game is to learn, to table, to play, just really drags it down half a point for me. It is a 4.5 out of 5. On Wednesday we had 15 Essen Expansions to keep your eye out. Just a bunch of expansions from Acropolis to Force Shuffle to a variety of other ones for games you know and love, or games you don't know and love, but a bunch of expansions to keep your eyes peeled for. On Thursday we had a review for the Apiary expansion. The Apiary expanding the Hive expansion. Later on Thursday, we had the weekly live go up, just me answering questions as usual. And then we had, lastly on Thursday, we had a gameplay for Fate of Venterra going up. It's a 4X adjacent, I don't know if it's full 4X, a 4X adjacent game of expanding asymmetric factions and all that. That's going to be an upcoming crowdfunding campaign. On Friday we had a conversation, a video on previews versus reviews, just going into the differences between them, why someone might want one versus the other, both from the audience perspective, from the publisher perspective, and from the content creator's perspective. I think it's always a good conversation to have that distinguishing factor of what makes something a preview or a review, and there are differences of opinions around what people think makes something a preview or a review. I just go through what my own opinion is and what I think the general perception is. That's Friday, which means today we have a few things going up. We have a review for A Gentle Rain going up, done by Meg and Ricky on the channel. And then we also have a review for Rebel Princess going up on the channel. You'll see that later today. Keep your eyes tuned for both of those. And yeah, that's basically today. Which means to next week. Next week we have a few things. We're going to have 10 games that are worth the upkeep. A video about games that are a lot, but they're worth getting into. Specifically inspired by Elder Scrolls to a certain extent, but my review of that one where I really like the game, but it's also a lot of upkeep. I'm going to go through 10 games in my collection that are worth the upkeep. Spoiler alert, Elder Scrolls may be featured in that video. And then we're also going to have the games being added to my collection, as usual, a complement video to the games leaving my collection, talk about the games that I've played this past month that I'm adding and that I think are worth sticking around for. As far as I'm sorry, I've had a tickle in my throat for the past 7 minutes, which I need some water, but I'm just going to finish this video. That's where we are right now. Which brings us to the games on the couch. The games on the couch, we have a few things. We have Siberian over here from Impatience. This is the newest game in the Oniverse that I recently just played through Sphinx, I want to say. Not in the Oniverse, but from the same publisher, and I'll be playing through Siberian hopefully soon. We have Footprints. This is I think, one of the few games, maybe the only game. It's one of the few games I brought back from Gen Con 2023 that I have not played or covered, and I want to go ahead and finally table that this week, so just to knock it off my list because it's been a year. We have Aqua Garden, which I tried playing a few weeks ago, didn't get around to, hope to play it this week. And then lastly, we have King of Monster Island, which my son has to play this, so we're going to make time to play it this week. This is the one that I am the most certain will get tabled from all of these games. And that's what we have. That is your weekend review. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.